Hello, Wranglers. Happy Memorial Day. And today we're going to talk about some veterans of note. Pretty much every veteran you see out there is worthy of respect and thank them for their service. And so, guys, whoever's listening, thank you for your service if you served. I never did. My dad had a whole career in the Air Force. I got out and I did medical illustration and I did some music, and I was a police officer for a while, but we don't really count police officers in the veterans thing. But anyway, this is about the veterans, not about me. Like and subscribe. And remember, you can see me live on Babblegab on Tuesday nights Eastern Time at 7 p.m. Links are in the description. So hopefully that'll make you all happy. It's fun. It's a fun show. Anyway, let me get right into it. One of the first veterans of note is George Washington. Okay, why is George Washington of note? Oh, he's the father of our country. He did this. Well, the thing about George Washington that's really interesting is he patterned himself after a Roman general named Cincinnatus. Now, Cincinnatus was called up by the Roman Senate and the emperor to come protect Rome. Hang on a second. I'm turning my light on here. Maybe I'm not. Okay. Roman senator to protect Rome and from an invasion and from an enemy. So Cincinnatus, donned his armor. He is kind of retired, and he got in there. He got his very faithful legions to follow him. A lot of the Roman legions were very faithful to their generals, even more so than to Rome itself. They followed their generals. Cincinnatus went out. He saved Rome. Then he came back home. And now the Romans were so happy they wanted to make him emperor. And Cincinnatus said, "No, I didn't do this to become emperor. I did this to serve Rome." So he went back to his farm and his lands and worked his farm and his lands. And they wanted to give him all this glory. Same thing with George Washington. Initially, George Washington, felt it was his duty to save the colonies, save the Union that we were creating. And so he went out and he fought. They won the war. And they first wanted him to be king, and he said, "No, no way, I'm being king. We just fought to get away from a king." So he did agree to be president, and that's for a while. And he did his terms as president, and then went back to his home. But even before that, I don't know if he really wanted to be president. He wanted to model himself after Cincinnatus. He did his duty to the republic, to his union, and then went back to wanted to go back to private life. So that was interesting about him. I always admired that. Excuse me. Another interesting general and a veteran of note was Ulysses S. Grant. I don't think Grant did so well in West Point, and he was known as a drunk and kind of a not a rough and tumble type, you know, guy. However, Lincoln knew his talent, and Lincoln called him up out of retirement to come fight, the Civil War. Grant grumbled and grabbed his bottle of whiskey and went off, and they fought the Civil War, and they won largely due to Ulysses S. Grant. So we had a good example of a drunk there helping us preserve the Union. So that was a pretty good one. Then I think another one of note that I just wanted to include because I don't know much about him is Eisenhower. Eisenhower was the last five-star general, and he did some World War II stuff, and he ran around being a big deal and all that kind of thing, and he had the "I like Ike" buttons and all that. So, but anyway, I'm not sure what Eisenhower did, what his early career was like. And today I'm getting this video out, so I don't have time to research him. I'm sure he was an incredible man. So, if y'all want to correct me, look that up. Oh, by the way, yes, I did have a correction. Not even correction. I had a commenter on one of my earlier videos who made some really good points. I will be doing another video on that. It's the Isdall woman, and with this added information, this person has spent a lot of time researching that case, and she had some very good input. And I want to revisit that because I had a very flippant yet decisive opinion on that, and she wants me to explore the other sides of it. So anyway, back to the presidentes that were veterans. After Ike, we had I think before Ike, actually, we had Roosevelt. Roosevelt was badass. Roosevelt used to fight in some of the wars for American territories, and when he was president, he was getting ready to go out and give a speech somebody attacked and shot him twice. Bap, pap. They overpowered the guy that was shot him, and Roosevelt basically said, "Enough of this nonsense." And he walked out and he gave the speech with two bullets in him. And then I guess he went and got medical help. But talk about badass. That I'm sorry, I'll use the term. He's shot twice. He calls it nonsense and goes out and gives a speech. You don't get any more gangster than that. I don't care who you are, where you've been, what you. That's awesome. Okay, so Roosevelt, yeah, Roosevelt's, Teddy Roosevelt's definitely worth mentioning for those kind of things. Now, not all the wonderful presidents, wonderful veterans were presidents. Those are just some of them. We have some very good guys that are never in political office. For example, Audie Murphy, the American soldier who captured, I think, something like 25 British soldiers by himself. That's pretty impressive. Audie Murphy, it should be remembered. I again go look it up. I think it was like 25, something like that. It was a quite a big number, and he was American hero. To be honest with you, very very good American hero. Next, we have a guy named, I want to include this man, this Marine named Carlos Hathcock. Carlos Hathcock was one of the very first American snipers that of modern warfare times, and he. I don't know if that's accurate, but it's he made put sniping on the map. There's a case where he was a counter sniper was sent after him, and the two of them stalked each other for days. Finally, they were hiding out in the field, both of them, and Hathcock saw a glint off the guy's scope, off the glass on the guy's scope, and he fired that glint. He fired where that, and the bullet, Hathcock's bullet, went right through the scope and hit the guy in the eye and killed him. I don't care what MythBusters say; they are wrong about so many things, and that show is so messed up. You can go back on YouTube and look at other things about how problematic MythBusters is. But yeah, they said it didn't happen. It did happen. Okay, it was recorded. It did happen, and Hathcock had no reason to lie. He had a huge stack of kills at that time. I mean, he just didn't have anything to apologize for. He didn't have to aggrandize himself. He also killed. There was a Vietnamese. I guess she was I don't know what rank she was, but she was a Vietnamese woman who led a battalion of Vietnamese soldiers, and she was notorious for catching and killing and torturing Americans. Well, Hathcock tracked him down, found her, and he saw her and her troops moving down this hill. And they said that she decided she was going to go take a whiz, and she broke off from the group, go out in the field and take a pee. And there, he said he could see a soldier saying, "No, don't do it, don't do it." And as she squatted down to pee, he put one right through her, and that ended her. Okay, and they did bounties on him and everything, not just for that. Before that, and another time, Hathcock killed a very important Vietnamese officer. He had stalked, he had laid still, not really laid still. He'd crawled through the ground for 3 days to get in position. I mean, we're not talking about walking, we're talking about crawling. And when he finally found the proper position, he was sitting on an anthill getting bit. And finally, this Vietnamese officer came out of his hut and went to pour himself a cup of coffee, and that's when Hathcock killed him, shot the bullet and killed him. And they asked him, he goes, "Why?" He goes, "When I saw that, I know it takes about 3 or 4 seconds to pour a cup of coffee, and I knew I had that window." So Hathcock nailed him. So this is that's a American, that's a force multiplier, as they say in the military. Carlos Hathcock. He's probably could have won Vietnam by himself if they would have let him do his thing. Anyway, that's another notable veteran who did some really cool stuff. Now we've got our veterans and stuff. We got snipers are regular parts of it, and they're in all of our theaters of combat and all that kind of thing. I'm trying to think of who else there was. Trying to think of names or anything. Anyway, there's plenty of them out there. Another Another veteran of note who was a victim of his own hubris was George Armstrong Custer, who basically believed he couldn't be beat by the First Nation peoples, the indigenous Indians, and he picked a fight when he shouldn't have picked a fight, and he was warned about it, and he got killed. And so not all of them are not all of them are great and wonderful. Some of them were a mistake. It made some fatal mistakes, like Custer. He had been so successful for so long. He had dressed himself up in his own little uniform and had his long, glowing blonde hair flowing and all that kind of thing. And he was cavalry, and he basically got taken out and did that. Now, some of the servicemen that are of note, I don't know their names because I couldn't find them even when I heard the story. Like the Bismarck, the terror of the German Navy, was a giant battleship that was out there sinking. It sank the British ship, the HMS Hood. Now, sinking the Hood would be like if we had the real USS Enterprise, and it was a famous ship, and everybody loved the Enterprise, and somebody came along and destroyed the Enterprise. That would take our that'd make us feel bad, to just put it bluntly. And the Brits were reeling from this because this battleship was sinking all kinds of sinking all kinds of British ships, from a distance with its giant guns, and was unmatched in a fight. Well, the way they finally got the Bismarck was it was heading back to port, and a lone torpedo bomber guy from one of the ships just came in, and he launched his torpedo, and it hit the back of the Bismarck. Didn't sink it; it destroyed its prop on that side. So now all the Bismarck could do was go in circles. So it just circled in the ocean, and they were able to muster enough aircraft and forces to take her out and sink her to the floor. So you got to give that guy some kudos for his great shot. I don't think he's an unknown soldier, but he can't be. You got to look. We got to look up his his record, and find out who he is. But I'm just getting this video today to where we can think about how our amazing veterans are. And people are. Some of you might be thinking, "Oh, America, imperialism." Blah, blah, blah. Well, to be honest with you, America is one of the few nations. The USA is one of the very few nations on the planet that ever tried to practice and does practice purity of arms, meaning we try to keep our soldiers in line, we try to keep our brass in line, and we try to put standards on them, and we are likely to prosecute people if they do something bad. Now, I know we've all heard about the atrocities in Vietnam and things like that some Americans might have done. And you got to understand, in the theater of war, atrocities are getting thrown back and forth. We're not just over there stomping around doing atrocities for the hell of it. There's people coming after us doing this kind of thing. And other countries like Japan, who everybody loves so much, okay, they're guilty of the rape of Nanking and the Bataan Death March. Go look at that. That's way worse than anything we've ever done. And for all you anime fans, go look up the history of Japan in World War II and see what they did. But as far as America goes, at least we're trying to do it right. Okay, we were the ones that created the precision guided missiles so that we weren't taking out entire blocks of civilian population to get one guy. We nailed that. We spearheaded that, and they're always constantly trying to improve the military and its effectiveness, and not only to win the battle but to win the hearts and minds and get out of there. But yeah, are we guilty of things? We're guilty any country that goes to war is going to be guilty of something, okay? Something they shouldn't have done. And that is just the fact of war. I can't help that. That's just the way it is. And, I don't think there's ever been a war fought where, it was perfectly chivalrous, even in the days of the knights back in England. It might have been a chivalrous war. Maybe the opponents were chivalrous to each other, but then you get back to the castle and your younger brother's going to try to kill you so he can be king. All kinds of crap like that. That still goes on today, but not necessarily in America. We have elections and stuff, but there are countries where that takes place. So keep all this in mind when you want to throw criticism around and you want to, badmouth people. The guys that go into the military, I know a lot of them. A lot of my best friends have been in, lots of them. And one of them, was in the military for a while, 8 years, and he came out and became a police chief. This guy's entire career has been serving his country and his community. I've got other friends. Some of my best friends were served in the military. It gave them the GI Bill, and they served for years. And some of them love it, and some of them don't. So, but you get that option. That's why you sign those contracts. But most of them that get involved with that, they do have a sense of, I call it they have a bit of the sheepdog in them where they want to protect people, where they want to protect our country, where they want to protect our way of life, where they do believe in the flag and they want to protect that and maintain that. And they see themselves as standing in the gap between that and those that would take our freedoms away from us. How's that a good enough a lecture there? Let me see if there's any other great military men I can think of. Well, there's been plenty of, there's guys like Pappy Boyington, who was a pilot, Marine pilot that fought in the Flying Tigers. And I had actually had a teacher that knew him and flew with him. And I asked him, Mr. Yi was Chinese. And at the time, Pappy Boyington was stationed in China and they were fighting the Japanese, that had taken over parts of China with their fighter planes. And I asked Mr. Yi, I said, so what was Pappy Boyington like? Mr. Yi just looked at me and goes, always had a dog with him. I guess Pappy Boyington had that bulldog that he took with him everywhere. That was the only thing I got out of Mr. Yi about Pappy Boyington, which I thought was funny. So we have guys like that I don't know how you say it. Uh, were awesome. I saved one of the best for last. Now I don't know if you'd call this military, but it's close to it. He was a U.S. Marshal and in the Old West, and they often acted as a military branch in a way. I mean, they're law enforcement, but they were out there on their own. They would fight battles against people. They'd fight battles against bad guys and all that. And one of the most notable men was a black man named Bass Reeves. And Bass Reeves was a legendary in his lifetime and even now U.S. Marshal, probably known as the best U.S. Marshal. In fact, the Lone Ranger concept was developed by a guy who had read about Bass Reeves. But yeah, Bass Reeves was a black man out there, fighting to keep the frontier clean and safe for normal people. So I want to include him as a veteran too. I mean, I think he deserves it. And some of these guys take tremendous risks, and some of them are paramilitary. And if there's anything else, we see if there's one more or two more or anything else I can think of. Um, Not really at the time. I just know that a lot. I have relatives and all that kind of thing that have served, and most of them are very happy that we served. And I often play at VFWs, and I don't charge anything if I go there and I'm playing. It's kind of way I give back. So by playing, I mean my guitar, which I will be demonstrating soon when I get some new equipment. My damn recording equipment's broken, and I didn't know that. I'm gonna get it fixed. So you guys have a good day. Happy Memorial Day. Thank somebody for their service, and I am out.